Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, September 17th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Toledo game is today, the game against Michigan in 70 days. The Buckeyes will not kick off until 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, so there's plenty of time to watch some other games during the day. You can also watch our pregame coverage at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. After last weekend, when everyone said it was going to be a boring schedule, and then it turned into a completely insane weekend, please don't underestimate what could be in store for all of us this weekend. Don't underestimate either what's in store for us right now. That is Tony Gerdeman of Buckeye Huddle. Tony, thanks for being here.
Tom, thank you for having me. It's a joy and a privilege to be here once again.
So I guess we have to start with, there's some weird dynamics around our first game today. Oklahoma minus 11 at Nebraska. That is the big noon kickoff on Fox. No Scott Frost anymore. They fired him. They spent an extra $7.5 million to get him out the door before October 1st, presumably because this is a significant game for them, and you don't want to have the dead man walking vibe around the program at this point. So $7.5 million gamble that Nebraska put down on this. Do they keep it close? It feels to me like maybe you get the new coach bounce a little bit, and they can at least keep this kind of close against Oklahoma.
Yeah, this is always the conversation when a coach gets replaced mid-season and Mickey Joseph taking over as the interim guy there, expecting to have some sort of an emotional lift, having the fans there who I have to imagine they're pretty elated that Scott Frost is gone, so that will create some emotional lift as well. Oklahoma, number 6 in the nation, as you said, an 11-point favorite. I wonder how often there actually is a win after a coach departure. And I think when it does happen, it gets attributed to the lifting up. When it doesn't, obviously it's attributed to losing the coach and being down. But I don't know that you know what you're going to get until maybe mid-game. It will be interesting to see what happens if this is a close game and if Nebraska, God forbid, wins a one-score game and does something that Scott Frost was rarely able to do. Last year, this is a really good game in Norman, and I'm not siding with Nebraska and the coaching uplift here, but I do think this crowd is going to be amazing.
The crowd should be, sort of the desperation kind of crowd where if you win this, then the season is saved, and maybe you make it a bowl game, and it turns into a really memorable and inspiring season. And if you lose or you really get blown out, like, oh boy, you might go, bouncing down the cliff like Homer Simpson. It feels like you might get a close one and lose close, but play well. That's kind of what they did against Oklahoma last year, where it kind of felt like a win at the end of the game because they weren't supposed to be that close and they kept it pretty close. So yeah, I'm going to say Oklahoma, but Nebraska covers here. Another team that is probably hoping for a little more than a moral victory. The South Carolina Gamecocks, Spencer Rattler, leading them at home against Georgia. Georgia giving 13.5. Georgia didn't do much last week against Samford, but they don't get the sense that Georgia was trying to do all that much against Samford. They may have just kind of been working on some stuff and treating it almost like a spring training game. This is one where I think Georgia is the best team in the country until someone else puts up a performance as good as they had against Oregon. Do you see any reason for optimism here that South Carolina keeps this within 2 touchdowns?
Well, I think having the game at home, I'm always a home field advantage kind of guy. South Carolina gave up 23 points in the fourth quarter to Arkansas to lose that one 44-30 last week. So that was a game that they were very much in and could have won. But this one feels to me like 24.5 point line, as you said. Like Spencer Rattler can only do so much, and they're going to get after him. And I'm not sure the South Carolina defense has enough for the Georgia offense. Did I just say? I just said that. Wow. Yeah, and is this going to be one of those games, Tom, where it's it's not a great week of action? Is this one of those games that makes it a memorable, unforgettable game or an unforgettable week where you have an upset? Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of upsets on the horizon. And is this one of the more likely upsets? I don't think it's it's certainly not likely, but is it more likely than some of the others? Maybe, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm riding with Georgia. 24.5 is a lot, though.
It was 13.5 was the line last time I saw it. Georgia 13.5.
ESPN is showing me 24.5.
Well, that seems like quite a number of points, which that is an odd discrepancy. I got mine from Vegas Insider, so Bristol's not in Vegas, so I'm going to have to defer to Vegas. So let's compromise. Let's do a game where the point spread doesn't matter at all. Michigan minus says 45.5 against UConn. Whatever. It doesn't matter. We have to talk about this game on the Michigan Monday show. So is there anything about this that's interesting to you now that the quarterback situation, the much ballyhooed and extremely mysterious quarterback situation, which we definitely didn't all know how it was going to play out, now that that's settled, is there anything really to watch for this weekend or not really?
No, and there's an argument to be made that Michigan has played the three worst teams in FBS this season in their non-conference schedule. The only thing to watch, again, is the same thing to watch last week when they were playing Hawaii, and that's to see if quarterback J.J. McCarthy plays poorly. He should play well, but if he plays poorly, that tells you, that's the only thing that can tell you anything is if these guys play poorly. And, even if at this point they're starting to feel their oats and maybe UConn scores early or something like that, this is a game that it shouldn't be played. And they've already had 2 tune-up games. You don't need a third one. Like I've got it here as a 47.5 point line with an over-under of 60. Like, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, I have seen various rankings of the 5 worst, 10 worst, 15 worst teams. Michigan's 3 non-conference opponents are all among those 3, or among those 5, among those 10, and yeah, it is not good. It is a schedule that is. I mean, we dogged on Ohio State's home non-conference basketball schedule, and it's like almost intentionally you scheduled the worst possible opponents for the least interesting games. That's what Michigan did for football this year for non-conference, getting out of the UCLA contract. It's not good. It is very unimpressive, and can't wait to talk about it on Michigan Monday. Next up, let's move to 3:30. Penn State at Auburn. This is one that I feel like this game ends up 23-20, and it kind of depends on who is, the question is who's going to have the 23. Auburn is a disaster. Brian Harsin is, now that Scott Frost is gone, Brian Harsin is the closest to climbing into the trebuchet and getting flung into the sun of any FBS coach right now. I think my only concern from Penn State's perspective is how does the offensive line hold up against that Auburn defense? Because I think Auburn's offense is not good at all. And if Penn State can score 28, 31 points, they win this probably comfortably and cover by a touchdown. I really just don't know what to think. Nicholas Singleton's averaging 10-point-something yards per carry. If he averages 6 yards a carry, I think Penn State wins this game comfortably. I have real concerns about the Penn State offensive line that I think keep this close, but Penn State probably wins. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Auburn should lose. Like, Penn State should go there and win. Auburn is not good. They beat San Jose State 24-16 last week. That was clearly a 4-quarter game. And yet, trying to pick James Franklin to go on the road in the SEC, and Auburn, they are in the SEC, and James Franklin go on the road anywhere if that makes you happier, and picking them to win, it's really, really difficult for me. However, I think Nick Singleton is a difference maker. If he has 20 touches, I'll take Penn State. I just don't know if he's going to get there, and if the Penn State offense as a whole can get it done, just avoiding the mistakes that they make so often. We've seen it for years where Sean Clifford he's very capable, but he's also quite incapable at times, and you just don't know which one you're going to get. But if they can give Nick Singleton enough carries, I like them, but I can't take James Franklin on the road. I can't do it.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. You're putting Brian Harsin, who has kind of one foot out the door already, against James Franklin. It's like, well, here's how college football works. One of these teams has to win, believe it or not. So, yeah, I think I'm going with Penn State just because. But man, the offensive line, and we haven't even talked about Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford just feels like he's not going to win this game for him, but he probably doesn't lose this game for him, which might be enough.
That would be enough.
Yeah, another 3:30 game. This was an interesting line to me. Oregon giving 6.5 against BYU. Oregon's at home. 3:30 kick. Am I crazy to think BYU wins this one outright?
That's where I am as well. And I've got this as Oregon 3.5 on ESPN. I don't know. Very wild disparities. But yeah, either way, I like BYU, and I don't know if they're getting their receivers back. That's a difficult thing for them, but they've still been managing, and they're just a tough team. And I've heard Oregon is not the same Oregon that lost to Georgia, but like they didn't even compete in that thing. And Outson is a tough place to play, but that was under Chip Kelly. I don't know how it is right now. I just really like the makeup of BYU, and until they lose, I'll just assume they're gonna they don't really care about any of this stuff in terms of TV or going to Oregon. They just want to do their job. They just want to work and then get back home. And I just I like their business-like attitude.
And BYU is a team where it feels like in the trenches, all the stuff I just said about Penn State, you don't have any of those trenches concerns with BYU. They might just be able to push Oregon around a little bit. That, if they can, that decides the game, and it's not really much of a conversation. Oregon's loss to Georgia week 1, coupled with Utah's loss to Florida week 1, has kind of set the Pac-12 is terrible narrative in motion once again. That Oregon BYU game feels like that's one that the Pac-12 really needs them to win. Another one the Pac-12 probably needs to win, Washington against Michigan State. That's at 7:30. I'm going to give up on the point spreads because apparently we're just making stuff up at this point. Washington feels like they were preseason kind of picked as one of those like potential real bounce back teams just because the Jimmy Lake era was such a disaster that just going from disastrous coach to literally any other coach was going to bump them up a couple wins. Just that in and of itself. They've gotten off to a pretty good start this week. I think probably they're favored against Michigan State, but this is another one where I feel like we're going to learn a lot about these two teams because I don't know how much we really know about either one of them right now.
No, and former Indiana quarterback Michael Penix is the quarterback at Washington, thrown for 340 yards a game so far in their 2 games, but those 2 games are Kent State and Portland State. So what does that tell us? Really not much. But, this Michigan State team going on the road, and Washington can be a tough place if the fans there believe in the program. And I think this is got the number 11 Michigan State Spartans in. So this should be something that the fan base would get into and show up for. And I think I already picked this in another contest where I think I went with Michigan State outright just because I need to believe in Washington again, and I realize I'm being foolish in believing in Michigan State on the road. This feels like, as I was thinking about it earlier today, it's like I can't believe I did that. And now, Tom, I can't believe I'm almost trying to do it again, but I think I'm gonna hedge and go with Washington, and let's see if Mel Tucker can earn some of that $90 million or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably Michigan State. I mean, based on, go back 10 years and tell yourself, what I'm going to say is I think Michigan State's more of a sure thing in this kind of situation, which historically that has not always been the case. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, this feels like this is going to be a really intriguing game, and this might very well end up a game between two teams that finish the year 7-5 or 8-4 or something like that. But it does feel like a really intriguing game where you really don't know what's going to happen. Another one that you feel like you should know what's going to happen, but speaking of teams you probably historically shouldn't have believed in, the Texas Longhorns hosting UTSA at 8 o'clock. You know what Texas did last week, almost pulling off the huge upset against Alabama. Quinn Ewers obviously out this week, Hudson Card the starter. Here's what UTSA has done this year so far. Lost 37-35 in triple overtime to Houston and won 41-38 against Army in overtime. So 2 overtime games, split them against good group of 5 competition, but not great competition. This feels like a little bit of a, if Texas is really Texas, if Texas is truly back, this is one that Texas, handles their business, because they should handle their business. But the Texas of the last 10 years or so absolutely blows this, or, it drags into a 4-quarter game, an overtime game, something like that, where even if they win, it feels like a loss. Does Texas handle their business here? Because they should win, but boy, I I still am not quite ready to believe in Texas.
I'm just thinking, like, if they had beaten Alabama, go hammer UTSA on that money line. Just go jump on UTSA right there, and wait for that letdown from Texas. And being without Quinn Ewers, like, he was really, really good. I think 9 of 12 against Alabama for like 134 yards and a touchdown, and at least one drop in that game. It's unfortunate what happened to him. Hopefully, he can get back by the end of the season. UTSA, like, they are battle tested, but so is Texas, and so I think this is going to be give us an idea, as you said, how it's not how back is Texas, but how can Texas bounce back, and they should win this and look decent doing it. If they can look good doing it, then I'll start to believe a little. But I've got this at 12.5, and I would, Hudson Card is not Quinn Ewers, but he can make some plays. I'm going to take Texas, but I don't like the points or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I feel like it. This feels like it's going to be close late, and Texas probably pulls it out. But yeah, UTSA is like a better program than people realize. Another program that is, let's go to two programs that maybe not be as good a program as people realize. Texas A&M against Miami, 9 o'clock. Texas A&M coming off of the, I'm going to say shocking loss to App State, but I really don't know how shocked I am. Miami beat Southern Miss last week, but it was 7-7 at halftime, I think, and then they ended up winning 34-7, 33-7, something like that. I feel like this is two teams that are maybe not nearly as good as people probably think or thought a week ago before they lost to Appalachian State. Is there, I don't even have a question here. Texas A&M question mark?
Maybe. Jimbo Fisher talking about giving up play calling. I mean, this is one of those. It's almost, I don't want to say mirror images, but similar images of programs like that aren't where they thought they would be, or they aren't where they think they are. And now Miami, if they win this one, they're going to be 3-0, and looking at the top 10, even though it's like, yeah, are you a top 10? Well, we've got a good quarterback, and yeah, you're in the ACC, so you might end up winning 10 games this year, but they're not a program that you can count on. However, they're playing Texas A&M, which is a program you can't count on. So I would, this is one of those where, you know what, I haven't seen just an ugly game and have it like, I just want to enjoy this and have no rooting interest, and whatever happens, I'm totally fine with it because both teams deserve to lose type of thing. And so you'll be happy because one of them will. Texas needs this one though. Texas A&M needs this one. And we've all seen the Kevin Sumlin, Jimbo Fisher comparisons where Kevin Sumlin is now like a game ahead of Jimbo Fisher after the first 50 games. Jimbo can't fall 2 games behind that.
Yeah, and this is one where, you look at what Texas A&M has coming on their schedule, and I don't think the SEC West is quite as good as it has been at times in the past, but you still have Alabama on that schedule. You still got Arkansas on that schedule. There's some decent teams that they have to play, and this cannot be an 8-4 Texas A&M season. You can't do that again, and they just lost one they shouldn't have lost, so now I think you pencil in Alabama as a loss already. You better not lose to Miami. This is another one that, again, this is one where it feels like both of these teams finished the year 8-4, and maybe an Independence Bowl kind of rematch. We'll see, but yeah, boy, Jimbo Fisher, you better not lose this game. Not that they can buy you out at this point, but boy, that will not be a good look. Last game on the schedule before we get to the sort of late shift overnight sampling platter. USC hosting Fresno State, 10:30. If you didn't watch the end of the Fresno State game last week, they were playing Oregon State. Oregon State was going to line up and kick a field goal on the last play of the game to send it to overtime, and Fresno State called a timeout, and then Oregon State's Jonathan Smith said, screw it, and went in and ran the ball in with no time on the clock. That's a pretty gutsy call, but this is a Fresno State team that is a pretty decent team right now. USC has won, and if you just saw the scores, it's like, wow, USC is back. And then if you've watched or looked at any of the stats, it's like, oh boy, this is a Lincoln Riley team where they score a lot of points, and the defense is not very good. if they make the playoff, it's like, this is just going to be a Lincoln Riley playoff appearance kind of team. This feels a little dangerous to me. And again, this is another one where I don't think Fresno State upsets USC, but I think USC is weak enough on defense that Fresno State can keep this interesting for quite a while with Jake Haener. This could be a game into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this to me feels like one of those games back when USC was really, really good under Pete Carroll, and they'd have like maybe a San Diego State or Fresno State come in and make things interesting. I think this is a 4-quarter game that could be on by the time we get home, like the fourth quarter type thing. It's probably going to be over by then. But, one of these interesting fourth quarter games where something crazy will happen. It's a Fox game, which, that lends to a 4-hour game, so maybe there's a chance. But yeah, I like the 4-quarter aspect of this one, and anything can happen because I think it's going to be high scoring. But you got that Alex Grinch defense, and anything can happen, Tom.
Field goals, touchdowns, anything can happen with an Alex Grinch defense or touchdowns. Yeah, it is. I don't remember who said it. I wish I could credit them. Someone this week had a tweet that just said Alex Grinch's name was getting thrown in the mix for the Nebraska job, and someone tweeted like there is no one on the world who's better at their job than Alex Grinch's agent. That is as true today as the first time it was said. A couple late games, but boy, this is a fun line, and who knows if this is actually the line, but it was the line where I saw it. North Dakota State giving one at Arizona, so an FCS team on the road at the Pac-12, a favorite, 11 p.m. That should be at least one to keep an eye on. That feels like I guess you can't even call it an upset, but that feels like one where you may have an FCS over FBS win. Had 4 of those last week, so might have another one this week. And then finishing up the night, Hawaii hosting Duquesne, FCS Duquesne. That's a midnight kick. So go ahead and find that one and stay up late. I'm going to guess I'm going to be staying up late. We will be doing our usual pre and post game for tonight's Ohio State Toledo game. Toledo kicks at 7, right? 7 o'clock? I should know this. 7 o'clock tonight. And so the game should be over 10:30, 11, something like that. As soon as that clock hits 0, we'll be on live with our post-game coverage at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We'll have our usual post-game analysis, interviews with Ryan Day, CJ Stroud, Buckeye players, and then Tony Gerdeman and I, who you just saw. I don't need to say his last name. I can just say Tony. Tony and I will be on after the game to do our usual instant reaction episode of Buckeye Weekly. So that's all going to be at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Always a good time. Always enjoy getting to interact with you guys after the game, get your thoughts, answer your questions, and more, all at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that bell so you get notified when we go live. But again, as soon as that clock hits 0 on the Ohio State game, we will be going live. So join us there, and we will see you guys later tonight. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you later.